You're fine.
It's all you, brother.
Oh, me? Okay.
All you.
Hello, I'm Carlos,
And I'm Levi.
and we are again your friendly neighborhood Holy Chatters.
We are Holy Chatters.
We are the Holy Chatters. We had a wonderful lunch before we recorded this last episode, and our bellies are warm, our noses are running.
Thai food. Thai food.
I
so
know.
we may not be awake by the end of this episode.
We sweat bullets.
Yes.
We have a good conversation, but anyway, we are back to wrap it up, right?
That's right.
Our third episode on
Christian nationalism.
just as warm as the Thai food that we ate.
Warm and fuzzy. Maybe spicy. Like
Spicier,
the Thai
yes.
food.
Maybe spicier.
Definitely sweat afterwards.
Yes, that's right. Well, so to wrap it up, we wanted to talk about. So one, we have affirmed and said over and over again in the previous episodes that we are criticizing a ideology or this approach, but we are not against anybody and any person particularly. So today we want to talk about how maybe some ways into approaching with civility, with curiosity to each other, understanding our points of view, our understandings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that we will may differ.
Yeah, differ and defer. Let's do both.
Okay, but that does not make us either enemies
Right.
or be angry at each other or try to punch everybody's throat. But that we maybe just say, okay, I disagree with that, and but we can still be friends. We can still be classmates. We can still be sitting in the same pew at the church or have a cup of coffee and still be together because division is not bringing any fruit that can be happening.
Yeah, and it's like if there's anybody listening that doesn't go to church or isn't a follower of Jesus, that's great. We actually want you to be hanging out with us, and we'd love to hear from you too, by the way. But if you're out there and you're hearing this, it's really important to know that in our faith tradition, we believe that everybody was created in God's image. And that doesn't mean literally they have like a beard and a white robe, because I don't think that's what God looks like anyway. But it means, that we have God imprinted on us in our heart, in our soul, that there's a piece of the divine in all of us. And so even people you differ from politically, theologically, even in personal life decisions, they also have this divine imprint on them, and they should never be dehumanized or belittled or mocked or poorly treated for who they are or how they were raised and what they believe. It's also still okay, though, to have your own values and stand up for those values. So it's always walking that line of respecting the human being, but being very direct and honest about your feelings toward the ideology that might be driving some behaviors. And of course, there are many, many millions probably who have Christian nationalist sympathies. That would be very different from those few people who act on Christian nationalism in violent ways, for example. That would not be somebody I would have coffee with, but most people I would.
Yes.
And most people I'd like to talk to. So, in our research, I went and I looked at some of the things that sociologists have found that people who embrace Christian nationalism, they tend to have some particular worldviews, some particular understandings. And I thought it might be helpful for us to walk through those understandings, both so we can understand how they're feeling, where they're coming from, and be prepared to engage that and not react defensively or judgmentally or angrily, but react with compassion, with empathy, with a listening ear, and then be prepared as needed to respond where we think with the love and the truth of Jesus as we would. So here's one. There's a general fear and distrust of religious minorities like Muslims, atheists, Jewish people. That tends to coincide with Christian nationalist views. So that's a common thread that sociologists see. So if you have a friend or family member who feels that way, Carlos, how would you engage with them in that topic?
Well, could I add one of the lists down there so that we can talk probably, because I think that they relate.
Go together,
So one of the lists that my good friend Levi has here is uh, anti-immigrant views, right?
Anti-immigrant, yes.
So
Also minority type.
minority type.
Fear of minorities in general,
Right.
not just
Right.
religious,
Right.
ethnic.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, let us just put this out there. So census 2020, they study, you can go online and I will make sure that it's in there that you can make your own mind. But shows or said that the population in the USA is not growing, right? The population is getting older. And if there's any growth whatsoever in the next few years, is going to be due immigration. So that has changed and is changing the face of the United States, right? So you can probably see it in your local school, in your local neighborhood. There's people that maybe they didn't used to be there. Even in the small town, people in small town, there is people coming into work and everything. So all that change, I get that, at times it is could be scary, could be life changing. It could be disorienting. Well, what you used to know, it is no longer there, and then the rapid change of things are nowadays very rapid, right? It is not a gradual thing, but it is not overnight, but it is within a few years you can see a whole change. So there was a county in Oklahoma that in the 2000s it was primarily or 70 something percent white, and by 2010 2015 during 2020 diminished to 40%. So that is I mean, you're talking 20 years, and it's a whole change in the population. So yeah, it can be disoriented, and it is that's not even in a city, that's in a rural area in Oklahoma. So so when I could see the anxiety, and I could sympathize with that, or not sympathize, but empathize with that anxiety of the unknown, of I don't know these people, I don't know their values, and then react with fear. So in my experience, one is that I approach everybody with curiosity, right? I just approach everybody with, tell me about your family, tell me about who you are, how is your family, how are you, and tell me more about what you do, and truly I act interested, and it's not an act, it's truly what I am trying to build a bridge, right, to connect with them, and it has served me well. Now, it does not work all the time, and I cannot tell that even in local congregations, there has been people who, have yelled to my face that uh, people like me, immigrants, have making this country bad. Um, it is in the minority. It's in the minority. It's very in the minority. They are still there and are around, uh, but for the most part, the approach is what to do with this trust and everything is reach out and start building the bridges. Just share, be interested, truly interested in the other person, and I think that has also they become interested about who you are, who I am, and where I come from, and like usually, at least in Oklahoma, there's a lot of Northerners from Mexico who come here, and I'm a Southerner, so that is a difference, and they are surprised by us. So those little things that help just disarm people.
It's funny you don't have a Southern accent. Oh wait,
Yeah.
I got it now. Okay, Southern Mexico. Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a Southern Mexican accent?
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah,
between
there is.
Northern
Oh,
and
yeah,
Southern
yeah,
accent?
yeah.
That's cool. I figured. I always think it's funny when we say, you have a funny accent to a New Yorker, and they're like, "What do you think you sound like?"
Yes, right.
Oklahoma. So yeah, I mean, the list includes fear of immigrants, fear of refugees, fear of religious minorities, anybody that's sort of outside the majority identification, which especially in many parts of the South, is a white Christian person. Although also in the South, there's a very large African American population as well. And, for me, I've often struggled with the empathy piece when it comes to racism. There's a lot of racism in my family. My mom's side of the family is from Alabama and Tennessee. I had members of my family in the Ku Klux Klan. I've seen the robes at funerals. I've seen the robes and hoods at funerals where somebody passes away and the cousins all get them out, and I won't even tell those stories on camera. But it was just awful, the kind of the history that my family has with racism. So I'm not very patient about things like that. But I will tell you one thing that's helped me with empathy is thinking about the whole stretch of history. If you were born anywhere between like 1000 BC and 1800, so like almost 3,000 years of life, fundamentally not much changed. You had you did your father's job if you were a son, you did your mother's life if you were a daughter, you were mostly agricultural. The wheel was around, but not any kind of combustion engines or anything. I mean, your life fundamentally didn't change for 3,000 years.
Sure.
Granted, there was war and famine, but that's always with us, right? So fundamentally, same kind of lifestyle. And then in the last 200 years, all hell broke loose. And you had the steam engine, the internal combustion engine, you had the telephone.
Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, the Industrial Revolution, the technological revolution. And there has been so much change in such a short period of time that I think everybody is in an elevated state of anxiety about change. And if you think particularly of older folks who maybe grew up, I mean, I'm only 41, and I remember we had a landline telephone, and we left a note on the table when we went riding our bikes, right?
Yes.
There was no way to get a hold of me.
No.
If I was kidnapped, I was gone forever.
Yeah,
that was the end of it. There's no tracking. There's nothing.
No.
So even from our childhood with landline television or landline phones and 3 or 4 channels on the TV and no remote, we can remember that. And even from that to today, where you have at your fingertips, just on a tiny little device, everything, literally everything. The anxiety that produces, the fact that you can know an earthquake or a flood happened 1,000 miles away or 10,000 miles away in a second. Think about 1,000 years ago, they might not ever know that earthquake happened. So the elevated anxiety that we all have drives a lot of this. And so any kind of change just feels like it's rolling downhill. And that has helped me to be a little more compassionate about people who I don't think most people are afraid of a brown person or a black person. I think they are afraid of different. Other or change. That this is new, this is change, this is uncomfortable, this is scary. And I don't understand what to do with it. That's a little bit different than the racism that comes from slavery and the African American movement. That really was rooted in white supremacy and other things.
Which is still around. And
still around. Still real.
Real and still militant.
Yes.
But that, as I said, that is not the majority. And I think the other thing along with that, it is the most recent study, and even I heard it this morning, which again, you can see it here where it's happening, that children right now have in the States right now are dying, or they have more propensity to be ill or die than in other industrialized or advanced, whatever we want to call it, economies in the world. And there's many reasons, but one of them is loneliness. And we have this epidemic, we come back to this epidemic of loneliness, and I think that the isolation and this retrieve to oneself or a small group of people, that also has caused this chasm that we have between people. So just there may be people that they just don't know anybody else, and they don't know better in many ways. So because of this isolation that people are living in.
Maybe that helps just drive more empathy with us when we're talking to folks. Now, those who embrace Christian nationalism also tend to align with things that are a little more violent in terms of answers, approving of authoritarian tactics like demanding people show respect for national symbols and traditions, or even things like condoning police violence toward Black Americans, or distrust of racial equality movements and things like that, or a lack of belief that the criminal justice system might be biased toward minorities. but there is this kind of alliance a little bit with violence or more aggressive tactics to solve political problems in the Christian nationalist movement. Now, I have a lot of let me think of my adjectives carefully here. I have a lot of interesting, fun, colorful people in my family who would probably consider themselves Christian nationalists. I've never heard any of them condone violence. And I think that that's a minority within a minority of people who are, showing up at events to be violent. I think most of those folks actually are pretty afraid of the idea of us breaking out into some kind of civil war or having violence in the streets. That's not what they want. And yet they're still kind of willing to ally with the ideology a little bit. So how should we be engaging with family and friends on this issue and helping them understand how this violence begets violence?
Well, and I think that maybe comes back to that what we were talking a little bit last time in the last episode is that what kind of flavor do you have as a Christianity? That also will help you to identify or to have empathy, but also kind of understand them better. I say, okay, I got it, So, so just maybe to have that conversation as to tell me more about, help me understand. Maybe that's a good way to understand. Help me understand why do you see violence or this approach to more imposition of things is best than any other version, and help me understand that, because I cannot see it, and that in my experience have helped me to, as I said, build the bridges. Doesn't mean that we agreed. It doesn't mean that I don't think that here the point it is to convince them something or other, right? At least, if nothing else, I hope that one is that you get to a better place where you can express better your own point of view. And I was listening again to these other podcasts preparing for today. It is maybe there are answers that need one word answers. Some answers needed 10 words. Some answers need 100 words. So hopefully these 3 episodes help you to have a more cohesive answer for this, why this is a serious issue to take consideration and to address and to oppose and to resist. But by the same token, it gives you enough vocabulary so that you can, when the chance comes and when the opportunity appears, you can have a civil conversation with whoever that other side is, that you can say, okay, let's have a conversation and see what happens, kind of thing. Again, not necessarily convincing the other, but also you are very knowledgeable as much as you can with your own position. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is called confidence, and that you are secure in your feelings. And you made me think of 2 stories, really short stories, about when I was younger and I was not secure in my belief system. I remember one with an older member of my family who is a very devout atheist, but a kind of atheist who really wanted to convert you to their atheism. And so he really liked pointing out flaws in the Bible, and at the time I didn't have an understanding of what to do with that.
Sure.
So I remember we're having this conversation, and I'm just like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all the way, right? And he knows his Bible better than I do. He's an older man. He knows that. He knows where he's going with it. And he finally just pushes me to a point where I get angry, and I just yell at him and slam the door and leave. What a great way to represent Jesus to a family member, right? So he's thinking, well, if that's a Jesus follower, he just proved my point. So being insecure drove me to make poor decisions and to overreact and be angry. There's another one that's a little funnier, I think, which is my brother and I became Christians around the same time, and he was 2 years younger. We were both teenagers, and we were both voracious readers of the Bible. And I, to this day, can't remember who was on what side, but we were both arguing about whether any violence was allowed based on the teachings of Jesus. One of us was like, absolutely not even war, you can't even serve in the military, nothing. And the other one was like, there have to be these exceptions and this and that. And we were arguing back and forth over this to the point that we came to fist blows and fighting over nonviolence in the Bible. And we started like beating each other up, and then about 30 seconds in, we stopped and we're like, we started laughing. We're like, what are we doing? Like, just the irony of it. But that insecurity and not really knowing where you stand and really knowing your stuff. And once you know your stuff and you've really rehearsed it and practiced it in your mind and studied it well, it's way easier to engage someone with different opinions. But if you're pretty early in your walk with your opposition to something like Christian nationalism, it's probably not a great idea to engage a lot of folks until you get a little more confident in how to address those things by reading more. And we're going to link some videos about how others addressed Christian nationalism to give you some talking points to work with, to give you kind of a safety zone to stay in so that you can feel more confident. There are two kinds of people you might engage. One is someone who really does want to have a conversation, and I encourage you to engage them. There's the other kind that just want to fight with you. And at that point, I have the perfect tactic, which is to say, I just see it differently. And I promise you that shuts down the conversation. And then you can just have coffee and talk about your chihuahuas.
Yeah, there you
because sometimes people just want to argue.
Yes.
And there's no point going in circles, getting
no,
angry, making making a spectacle of yourself.
No, exactly.
So for those folks who are just interested in arguing, I just see it differently.
Right. I think ultimately, what you and I are saying in a long way probably is that relationships.
We're pastors, we only know the long way.
Yeah, I know we do. I think relationships is what matters.
Yeah.
And if you can build a relationship, great. If that relationship cannot be built for whatever reason, maybe that relationship needs to be that. Let's talk about our chihuahuas and have a cup of tea and that's it.
I've never changed someone's mind who was a complete stranger. Like walking up to them and being like, you're wrong about this. And I had no idea.
Ah, thank you for letting me know.
I have changed my mind, good sir. That never happens.
Thank you, citizen.
But I have seen people's minds change.
Yes, over time.
Over time. I remember one older congregant who was concerned about a specific social issue. And she was genuinely afraid, genuinely concerned. It wasn't coming from a place of hate. And we built a relationship over time. And over time, she became more accepting of that group of people. But it took work on her part, and she was willing to do the work rather than just throw out talking points and arguments and go back and forth.
Right.
It was meaningful relationship.
I would say the same thing. It's over time. It's always over time. Always through over many coffees and Chihuahua sprinkle conversations.
I'm not going to say what I'm thinking right now. So just to conclude.
Yes, to wrap it up.
My prop that I have. I have a local newspaper here in the Piedmont area. And one thing I have found reading the local news is you never see this nonsense of Christian nationalism or hate in these local papers. I mean, I say never. Maybe it pops up here and there in an opinion piece or something. But, this paper from last month is Take a Tour on Route 66. Piedmont residents at the NBA Championship Parade. There's an article here about a man who lost his wife, and the Habitat for Humanity neighborhood in the area built him a house. I mean, that's what people really care about. And if you have a friend or family member who's saying things that sound racist or sound Christian nationalist or sound hateful, you might just say, I know that's not actually who you are. Because if an immigrant came to your porch needing food, you would feed them. I know you would. You wouldn't shoot them. like obviously if somebody's threatening you, you might react differently, but if someone came in need, had no clothing, had no food, had no shelter, you would do what you could to help that person. And I know that's who you are. And how I know is because local things like this are about those good things and not the nonsense.
That's right. And it has been my experience as an immigrant myself that 91% of my experience with everybody. I have met a whole lot of people throughout my 20-something years here in the States. It is that person who wants to help, who wants to know more about me, who wants to build a relationship with me, we have jokes, who invites me to lunch, who takes me for dinner, who provided for my family, who has been generous for with my children, who in my time of need, during illnesses and everything with family. they have been always there for me. So it has been my overarching experience that there's more people willing and wanting to be helpful and be loving and truly live out our Christian values, even if maybe they don't even call themselves Christians. That I would say that's from God. Then the opposite, which I have experienced that too. But as I said, in a minority experience, and that will not color my opinion overall.
Yeah, very good. Well, after this heavy conversation,
Yes.
I feel like it's time for an emergency.
30-second dance party.
People, are you ready?